Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Desire.Dilemma, a podcast that amplifies immigrant voices in America. I'm Funmi Apantaku-Onayemi, your host. America is a country of refuge for many around the world who have escaped the brutality of war and violence. It was not their desire to come to America, as millions of other immigrants. For them, coming to America was to avoid death, persecution, modern-day slavery, or human trafficking. Since 1975, 3.5 million refugees have settled in the United States. More than 60,000 refugees were admitted to the country in 2023. Many immigrants have lost a lot. They have lost a great deal of what is familiar to them to fit into the American society. Today, I have the high honor of having a conversation with Rebecca Deng, one of the 89 lost girls of Sudan. She's a survivor of the Second Sudanese War between Sudan's central government and Sudan's People's Liberation Party. The 22-year war began in the early 80s and ended in 2005. In her book, What They Meant for Evil, she brilliantly describes her people, the land she loved, the unity of her community, and her most cherished grandmother. Rebecca is an international speaker, immigrant advocate, and author. She will share her story of love, war, and survival with us. Our inspirational story gives hope to other immigrants on how they can adapt to the norms of America. Hello, Rebecca, and welcome to Desire.Dilemma podcast. I have to tell you that I'm so excited, first of all, for you to be on our podcast, but meeting you at the Chicago African Summit and buying your book. Oh my gosh. So yesterday I decided I've got to read this book and I have to be prepared for her. I have to say, every page I turned, I had some areas in which I could laugh. I had some areas in which I just poured because it's so emotional. Your descriptions, just vivid. And I'm thinking, I really want to go there, come to where you came from. Oh my God, you are too much. And this book should be all over because it says so much and it really gets people to understand the evils of war, if I can say that, and what that does to humanity. So tell me something. What made you write the book?
Thank you so much, my dear sister. Oh, you are fun of energy. Thank you. What made me write the book, actually, it happened during there was that time where the immigrant children were caught between the Texas border, and then children were put into look like sleeping centers and things like that, and they were using, I think, plastic sheets to cover themselves. And at that time, I was pregnant with my son, Deng, and we just finished painting in nursery room and choose the colors for him. And as I was watching the TV, and for some reason, something happened inside me, and I think it was a divine thing. I was just like, I had a flashback of me being ripped apart from my village, leaving my village when I saw those children being covered like that. And then I was like, and here I'm here in Holland, Michigan, middle class environment. I'm choosing colors. I was stressed about, what color should look good with what bed sheets and things like that. And here are another child, a child that a mother prepared like my son, and now is being covered in sheets and nobody is caring about them. And we are comfortable as human beings to go to bed at night. So that night, when I saw those images, I just started crying. And then I took out my iPhone, which I'm holding actually now, and I started just writing. And I think by the end, I think I went to bed at 3 a.m. I had over 40 pages. Everything was just pouring in my mind. And then from there, I just kept writing. And one day, one of my friends came and we were just talking about heartaches of the war and the war that is happening around and the discrimination too that happened in the war, because some war are fought and others are not. Even like right now, what is going on in Sudan and some other countries in Africa, they are not in the news, and some other war I pay attention to. So we just start talking about that. And she's like, what have you been doing? And I say, actually, I've been journaling about my experience and my life. And she's like, can I read it? So she read it and she's like, Becca. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, you need to pitch this one. This one is a readable thing. You need to pitch it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to expose myself that way, because when I'm in a crowd, people can detect my accent. And I can say, yes, I'm African diaspora, came from Sudan originally, but I don't have to tell them more than that, And she's like, well, just think about it. But I think you are an amazing writer and you should share. So one time I reached out to literary agents and we met up for coffee. He asked me to send him what I have written so far. I did. And then he's like, you need to pitch it right away. So we pitched it. And then I get a text from him like 3 days later. And he's like, hey, I heard from Penguin Random House. And I'm like, okay. And then later on, he's like, do you know what Penguin Random House is? I'm like, you know what? I will have to look it up, but I have no idea.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
He's like, in my career of 20 years, I never heard from them. And I got a message from them within 3 hours of submitting it. And then he's like, and Hachette Book Group accepted it too. So I say, okay. So later on, he told me that Penguin Random House want to take some word out there or something and add something. And I'm like, well, everything in that book, I want it to be where it is because this is the reality from my understanding of what I saw. And I want it to be like that. My faith, my traditional belief, my everything I wanted there. If I write another book in the future and want to be tweaked, that's fine. But I want this to be as original as I remember. So we end up going with Hachette. So that's how I came about writing my book.
So, while you were speaking, I kept hearing your grandmother, even though I never met her. But because I read the book, to a point, I kept hearing the confidence of your grandmother, And I'm thinking at that young age, even though you were so young when you were with her, the fact that you got that energy, you got that inspiration, you got that the whole notion of the continent of Africa is a wealthy place. It's a place in which women, women had the energy, the rigor, and they would go after anything. It just so by you just describing your grandmother, I'm like, oh my God, this is way something. So another thing I wanted to ask is, why did you title the book "What They Meant for Evil"?
Thank you. And thank you for highlighting that. I think most people sometimes they think that the feminism is a Western concept. And most people don't know it originally came from Africa. We have African leaders in every tribe, Nubian people that fought and they were led by women. And so that concept, and even me in my book, I talk about that, my dad's side of family, and so is my mom's side of family. They are named after the women. The clan is pretty much named after women, and they were powerful women that are respected. So with that said, women have always been a front run of leadership. And pretty much. But go ahead. What was the question again that you were asking?
So the question is, what you said, you titled the book, What They Meant for Evil. Yes.
Yeah. So the title of my book really came from Genesis. There's a verse there where Joseph's brothers show up in Egypt years later after they have sold Joseph into slavery. And Joseph became successful, was a commander-in-chief, and was in the leadership of food distribution. And so when the Israelites poured into Egypt looking for food, they found that Joseph was the person that is in charge. And then they were afraid. And they say, are you going to kill us or not give us food? And then Joseph said that, well, what you meant for evil, God intended for good, the saving of many lives. So when I choose what they meant for evil, I had a couple of things in my mind. The first one was transatlantic slavery. Okay. When we came to this country, those people that were in the boats, the ocean know their life because the ocean eat a lot of them. They die in the sea and they came to this country. The beauty United States as it is today, there will be no United States with the blood and sweat of African American. That will be just a lie if somebody say that. And then we came later on, and they fought for a lot of things, to be a woman, to vote, to go to school, to eat in the same restaurant as my best friend that are from a different race, white, and all of these things, people fought it for them. So I had them in mind, like what was intended for good, God used it to save many lives. Now we can settle to this great country on the shoulders of those who came before us. I also have the whole division of Africa in my head, the crumble of Africa, where the nation that didn't have boundaries, people traveled from the north to the south, and the whole, I think it started from, I don't know, Ghana, we're going all the way to Mali, to Senegal, all the way to Sudan, to Egypt. It used to be called Sudanic land, the land of Black people. And this is the place that came with the first mathematician, first building, all of that. They were one tribe. And then when the colonizers came, they got divided up over time, and then confusion come, right? It's like divide and conquer and all of that, the mess that we are in today. So it's what is meant for evil. God can intend it for good. God can raise another generation to say that unity is important. We are one people. As much I'm concerned, even this color and stuff is not even there in my head, because I'm like, we are humanity at the end of the day. And if we are human, we have to do things that will make us thrive and that will make us work together for the better of the world, the planet Earth, and ourselves. So that's why I choose what they meant for evil. Yes. And the third one, what we meant for evil, is that when we listen to all the voices, the doubts, the world will tell you, you are Black, you are immigrant, you are from shithole country, you are from this, and then you internalize them and believe them. You are meaning evil against yourself, because that is not the voice of the Creator. The voice of the Creator is the one that gives you wisdom, discernment, and you already know you are smart. There is nobody that can leave their homeland where they know the language, the sound, the smell and everything, and be in a new environment and thrive. That by itself shows resiliency and smartness. So listening to voices to make you doubt yourself, you are meaning evil against yourself. And then the fourth one, what they meant for evil, is the continuation of war and abuse, where we will say, never again will we allow this to happen, and then we let it happen over and over. Children being displaced, children being born into war, and the trauma keep going. That is what they meant for evil. And there is money. There's money stakeholders. There can be government, there can be dictators, they can be racist people, they can be those people who are afraid to speak up against something that is being done to them. So it is kind of a hidden topic, but that's pretty much what it meant.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is that my favorite character in the Bible is actually the story of Joseph. And, you know, I was introduced to the story of Joseph when I was a little girl. All I saw was this picture of this handsome man, you know, and was strong and everything. And then I read the book and I said, oh my gosh, he went through so much to actually become a leader. So I'm so glad you chose that, not because of what I just told you, but because from everything you've said, it really means a lot. And you're saying we really should be more united. And I think that is the key for Africa in general. Tell me something, though. I read about how the war came. Actually, this morning, I was thinking about the writing in which you said you had the dream of the war, as literal as you were. And it actually occurred, at least you had more of another type of, how would they say it? They came to your village within 3 days after your dream. And you running into the forest. I just kept, and you described how you had the fear of the lions, the snakes, the python. And gosh, how did you even, I don't want to take you too far back. How did you survive just the thought of going into the bushes, knowing that those animals were there to devour people, you know?
Yeah, well, it goes back to take the village. So my uncle was alive then, the one that I described at the end that passed in 2009 when I visited for the first time. Yes. He was alive back then, and he was taking care of us. There were about 3 grandfathers in our village that were running with us, and then bunch of women. So women took care of us. Sometimes they will put us on their shoulders because it was rainy season and there was flood. And I remember my feet being in the water, but my head is above, and the ladies will be like sleeping, standing up, So the water come to their waist, and then we children are on their shoulder, on their head, on their shoulders. I don't know, how do you describe? That one when they pick you up
when
and
pick
you on their head.
Neck. Yes,
one leg on this side and the other leg on that side, and your head.
Yes.
So they will carry us like that, and that's how we pretty much overcome those fear. And then I remember there was a time, and that was the first time actually I heard the lion roar. It came, and then the grandpas were making noise. They have instrument, and they were talking and this, and scare away the lion. So I remember that. Yeah. So pretty much I made it because I had community around me that were protecting me. And at that point, my dad was far away. He was in Ethiopia, training, young soldiers that later on fought, to free South Sudan. Yeah. So that's pretty much, what happened. And that's how I overcome that. It was the protection from people from my village. There's no way I could do it as 6 years old.
Yes. So how did you get to the refugee camp?
So refugee camp. So when we left our village, we came to a place called Bor, which is in Jonglei State. And then from there, where I describe how we had some chicken and give it to like a lorry driver, a UN lorry driver. Mm-hmm. They took us from there to Capoeira, and then Capoeira to Nairus, which is at the border of Sudan and Kenya. Back then, now South Sudan. But I ran. We ran when they captured Torit, which was the next town close to Nairus. We were walking on our feet, and that's where I describe. And even still today, I still have those scars on my feet, and that was my longest walk. Some people say that it was a 1-day walk. Older people or 2 days, but we were lost. Me and my cousin Chol, we were lost. And I think we got found like 3 days later. And it was the UNICEF, they saved the children. One of the vehicle I described in the book that rescue us. And by that time, we was dehydrated. And they give us those, like the mixture of salt and water.
Yes.
And give it to us. So we came to Lokichogyo. And then in Lokichogyo, we spent, I don't even know how long, maybe closer to a month. And that was the time they were trying to debate, right? Because these are human bodies and people are sitting in Geneva or wherever they are. And they're like, are these refugees? No, they are not. How can we describe them? Do they need help? Maybe. Well, yeah. And then later on, it became clear we are refugees, we are displaced. And so now you are giving a UN identification card and you can cross now to Kenya because you are not a body, you are not from SPLA, which was fighting the northern government, and you are a refugee. Yeah. So that's how we end up in Kakuma refugee camp.
I tell you, it's just riveting. So when you were in the camp for 8 years, 8 years, Rebecca. Oh my gosh.
8 years.
How was that?
Oh, it was so devastating. I remember arriving at Kakuma refugee camp. It was desert. There was no life. There's no rivers. There's no nothing green. We were given UN tent, which when you put the tent down, your body will start dripping with sweat because it was that hot. And then the UN lorries brought some water. We were given water. And then later on, they installed boreholes where we patch our water from. But Kakuma refugee camp in the beginning, I was like shaken because in my village of Arwai, which is like close to the Sut, the world's largest swampland, it was so green all year round, And so, and there's butterfly, like I described in the garden, everything. It was the beauty of the night. And then now you are in the middle of nowhere in a desert with no butterfly, no birds, no running water, no fruits, wild fruit to eat. It was so difficult. But as children, and that's one thing I keep telling everybody that I speak with. I say refugee camp is bad as it is, but if you give children something to dream about, install education, provide health care, they can't dream in that place. They can't dream until they get out. I'm not advocating for people to stay in a refugee camp, but if that is the case, because it takes a long time, provide education, give them food there, and they can dream. So over time, in a month into it, we make it a home. We start collecting like Coke bottle or something and make games. And then we start taking like rack clothes and turning them into a football to kick African football. You make life out of what is there. But it was so devastating. We had to get ration from the UN, which is like a scoop of wheat flour and a scoop of corn and a cup of oil and few other things, maybe a cabbage. In the beginning, they give us cabbage. And then you're supposed to eat that for 15 days. So you run out of it. That's not enough. And we used to have what is called black days, where you don't have any food. You just drink water. And looking back into it, I just remember you just get dizzy. You're not having enough food. But you play, you feel dizzy, you lay down. There was another thing that we did. We will go and eat like mud. Mud, the dirt from the building. We crack it, eat it, and then you drink water, and then you can play.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Let me tell you, this is something. So when you had the opportunity to come to the United States, how did that happen, and what were your first impressions of the US?
Yeah, well, first of all, when I got into the program, it was one of my teachers, which I talk about in the book, that told me about it. And again, I was then 15, and there was some suitors that want to marry me. And one of them, actually, they did do what is called kang, which is like they come and talk to family and there's a dancing. And then my family were like, well, she's still young. So if you give her about a year to be at least 16, she will be a woman fully, and we need to train her, give her some other thing to know about being a wife and this. So that thing was there. And my teacher was, again, I said, one of my teachers from the school that have seen my writing. And he's like, you know what, you are smart. You cannot be child marriage is a crime, So I think he gave my name to the UN people. And then when the program, the Lost Boys of Sudan, came about, I was called. And then I came along other obstacles, which I'm not going to go there. They are all in the book. But anyway, when we were about finally to leave, there was a rumors in a refugee camp for our first team. And they say, oh, you know what? You are not going to United States. They are selling you guys to celebrities. So I was afraid, actually, before I went into the plane. Like, I was like, where am I going? Like, really, is this something I want to do? But then we went in the plane. When I first landed in Grand Rapids, I first landed in Europe somewhere, I think Belgium. And then we standing in. And the first thing I saw was the Statues of Liberty. And I recognized it's New York, because they were like, my brother will go and watch these movies about America, and there will always be pictures about New York or something that they draw. And then I always see Statues of Liberty. And I remember having a feeling like, wow, she's a lady holding a lamb, a torch. I'm okay. For some reason, I recognized that, and my grandmother came in my mind, and I'm like, I'm in a good place. The Statue of Liberty is standing tall, holding a light. And it was the first image I saw when I landed in the United States. And then I connect to Chicago to Grand Rapids finally. And so when I got out of the airport, I remember getting in, and it was so much light and so many white people, a sea of white people. And I was just like, oh my God, how am I going to know these people? And I remember my foster family introducing themselves. And I was so worried that if they move an inch and mix with other people, I will not know who they are, because they look the same. They look the same to me. They look the same to me. But anyway, they had few Swahili word because they both met in Kenya. My foster mom is from Scotland, Edinburgh. My dad is from Chicago, but they both met in Kenya doing some work there. So they say, hey, Jambo, habari yako? I say, Mzuri. We talk a little bit and we got in a car. 3 days later, it started snowing. So that was a shocking thing. And this was 2000, November 6, 2000, where I landed. And I was like, why? Is this the ending of the world? Because in 2000, in refugee camp, they say the world is going to end. And then I'm like, but why didn't I come? Why didn't I have to cross the ocean and the world to end without my family and friends? Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
but then it turned out it's snow. So that was my first impression.
We cannot finish your story in one day. So I'm hoping that you promise me that you come back again.
Yes, I will. Absolutely. Yes. And please, recommend me any podcast to just get the word out there. We have to talk about this collectively. And that was my part of being brave to cheer so that we can all talk more. And even you're talking, you make me remember something that I even forget. So this is very helpful. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So thank you so much for your presentation of what they meant for evil, because it's a present to the world. We need to know the stories. We also need to know your story of courage and your story of survival in the United States. But that will be another topic for another time when we meet again. Okay, thank you so much, Rebecca, and I really, really appreciate your time. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Funmi.
Thank
you.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
To our audience, we want you to know that Rebecca will be back to tell us more about coming to America and adapting to the American society after surviving a brutal war. If you'd like to read more about her story, you can find a book, What They Meant for Evil, by Rebecca Deng, on Amazon and through the link below. Thank you for listening to our podcast on immigrants' desires to come to America and their dilemmas while staying in America. We hope this episode has been helpful and informative. Remember, adapting to a new culture can be difficult. With the right guidance and support, it is possible. We want you to share our podcast. We also want you to call us or go on our website, desire.dilemma.com, for more episodes. Thank you so much for being with us today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.